Yeah, get it on. Got to get on. The choice, but to get it on. Mandate, get it on. And welcome to the show. Dave Rubin, my old friend, is in studio with such an interesting story. And I don't know if you can vibe with this, but I bet you can. I now look at guests and upcoming guests and just people. And when I see names like your name on there or certain other commentators, I just go, oh, thank God, a sane person. Oh, God, we can have a sane...
It's a short list, man. It's a really short list right now, isn't it?
It is, but I feel like a prisoner in solitary who's just like, oh, okay, I'll talk to the priest, like somebody to talk to who thinks in just a linear kind of logical, just normal. What we used to think of as normal.
Do you think that maybe guys like us kind of failed over these last 10 years? I've been thinking about it a little bit, like for the slim set of people that were trying to make some sense of the world, right? And not be radically one way or the other and kind of understand you could disagree with people. It feels like we kind of lost. Like we're a little bit at that Star Wars prequel moment when Yoda and Obi-Wan, Yoda's like, go into hiding, I must. Like, like, oh, shit, it happened.
I was just talking to Dr. Drew about this.
Yeah.
And
he's on that list. I'd put him on that
list.
list.
Yeah. And so the way I work is I just sort of walk through life and then I occasionally stop and I go, oh, this is a moment or something is here. And it doesn't have to be a big moment and it doesn't have to mean anything to anybody else. But when I stop and go, oh, this isn't good, it means something. And like,
we're in one of those right now.
Well, so I'll tell you what this is. And it doesn't sound like anything, but about 8 years ago, I was arguing with my daughter. She was probably 9 or 10. And we were having this argument in the kitchen about something. And she was simultaneously arguing and sort of making her way to go to school, because she can multitask. Every woman I've ever met can argue and do whatever they need to do.
That's good.
So they have that skill.
Yeah.
So they can't text and drive, but they can argue and do anything else at the same time.
Maybe it's just the women that know you that can do that.
I'm probably bringing it on myself. So we're having this argument, and I was sort of following her out into the garage. She was going to get in the car, and my now ex-wife was going to drive her to school, and she kept this thing going. And I just said, listen, I'm sorry that's the way you feel, but I didn't do anything wrong, or whatever it was. And they both looked at me, my ex-wife and my daughter, and they went, if that's the way she feels, then that's what it is. Like she feels that way, thus it happened.
Yeah.
And they got in the car and they drove off. And I literally just stood in this empty garage going, oh, fuck. It's on.
Her truth, man.
That's her truth. That was like 8 years ago. And I immediately got on the phone with Dr. Drew and I'm like, this is trouble. And he's like, what? You had an argument with your daughter. I was like, oh no, it's a much bigger problem.
Yeah.
We're now entering a chapter where Rashida Tlaib's truth is that a hospital was bombed by Israel. That's her truth. And when you show her footage, it's not going to sway her. It's just what is.
Do you think it's her truth, or it's just that she, in this case, like I fully get their truth problem, and there is a huge problem with that on the left, of course, and there is no such thing as your truth. There's the truth. With her, I don't know that she actually believes it. I mean, she is a propagandist, and I would say she's certainly a Hamas apologist, and I would basically say a Hamas supporter at the very least at this point. So I don't know that she actually believes it. There's enough evidence of it. Even you saw the New York Times, how they had to change the headline 3 times. I mean, absolutely incredible. Well, I guess it's irrelevant largely whether she believes it or not because she's doing it.
I'm sort of carving out a third category that is somewhere between liar and propagandist or something, where it's a kind of a netherworld that if you just sort of say something enough, I mean, you take almost any subject, certainly COVID and beyond, but I mean, you take something like Trump and Russian collusion and Steele dossier and PP tapes and all that stuff, right? It was, 3 or 4 years of nonstop talk, and then they put a commission, had the commission, gave their findings, and the findings were it didn't happen. But that didn't change anyone's mind because it's now been ingrained. Like they've just been saying it for 3 or 4 years, and they just continue.
Don't you admire in some way the system works, that it can pull that trick off and so many people fall for it over and over, no matter how many times the masses are brainwashed by these things, that BLM was somehow good, right? Any of the COVID stuff, the Trump stuff, but they do it again and again and again. And the same people who fall for it, they fall for it again and again and again. And then what happens, that list that you mentioned up top of kind of the same people start going crazy, because at some point it's nice being sane, but when everyone's going bananas and you're right about a bunch of stuff, that can weigh on you.
Yeah, I just didn't know that. I didn't know adults were going to be this stupid, and I didn't know people were this pliable. Mm-hmm. I didn't know they could be sort of corralled and herded mentally and literally physically with COVID. Like, hey, Californians, no going to the beach. And everyone went, well, Gavin Newsom said no going to the beach, so we're not going to the beach. And I would be like, that means we should all go to the beach at the same time.
Yeah.
And they're like, fuck no, I'm staying in.
But you stayed here. You've got an operation. It would be too difficult to move all the cars. Is that really what it came down to more than anything else? There just aren't enough drivers.
The cars, for me, are like living in a home with a morbidly obese woman. and I'd like to get a new home, but how am I going to get Bertha off the sofa? We're here.
You could have done like an Adam Carolla Cannonball Run kind of thing. Like get all your comics and friends and co-hosts and all that, and everybody gets in one of your cars and has to do a race to get to Miami. Would have been beautiful. I would come back here to ride one of those cars out.
Well,
that's a great idea, man.
It's underway. Now, and my kids are going to graduate high school, and as I always say, I will be attending their high school graduation in a U-Haul. That's when I'm leaving.
So you really are, because I was pushing you on that. When I left,
listen, to live in California is to live in a world where you're, if you're me, fundamentally opposed to every single charter, rule, idea, and plan that is sort of laid at your doorstep or forced upon you. Like from a strictly just sort of emotional standpoint, every time somebody says, you know, the mayor of LA or Gavin Newsom or the city council has an idea, I go, oh, fuck.
Yeah, load the gun.
I will hate it's literally in a world, for me, it'd be like saying, I hate passion fruit iced tea. I like regular iced tea, and I hate new cubed potatoes for breakfast. I like hash browns. And it's almost like Gavin Newsom hears that and goes, now my decree is just passion fruit iced tea and cubed potatoes.
And by the way, as we sit here right now, you know he's with President Xi in China right this moment. So he's running for sure. Biden is not going to make it. I predicted it before the election. I said Biden will not be taking office a second time around if he even makes it. No. It's going to be Gavin. I don't know how the hell they're going to do it, but they're going to do it. And just quickly on the California thing again, you do know that you'd save an awful lot of money living in Florida.
Oh, look, it's all...
The fact that I save money to live in the freer place is so bananas, because I didn't move for money. You know, I loved living here. I had a good life. I had a beautiful home.
You did.
Made some good steaks.
You did. You and your husband, for sure. David, wonderful. Yeah, had many a wonderful evening at the Rubin household.
We tried. Illegal parties. That's what I was having. I was having illegal... You were breaking the law by coming to my house, eating my Wagyu tomahawks, and drinking my tequila.
Yeah, because
you did bring me a great bottle of tequila, by the way.
That was during COVID, right?
Yeah, that was during COVID. It's like hard to believe that it was even a thing, you know?
Well,
what a weird time.
We were, and but it's something I want everyone to kind of digest. We were sitting around and they were saying 3 years ago, you know, for Thanksgiving, you guys should eat outside, put the table outside because it's super warm that time of year at night, and go out and, don't invite grandpa or grandma. And if someone wants more potatoes, put it in a T-shirt cannon and fire it at them from across the pool. And I was like, you do understand that's what these people were saying to do.
Yeah.
And all I'm saying to people is the next time they tell you to do something, please think about it.
But you know they won't. They'll fall for it. You can see people. I mean, what's happening even now, I'm sure we're going to talk about it a bit, but what's happening even now with these, what I would call Hamas rallies, not Palestine rallies, and we can get into why that word doesn't even make sense. You can see people falling for the whole thing again. The fact that they basically, just like that, they turned BLM into a Hamas organization overnight on these college campuses and these protests. They've got people's brains. So whatever comes after this, whether they're ushering in World War III or whatever, the zombie apocalypse, the alien invasion, a whole bunch of people will be in on it, and they will turn on you worse than during COVID when they were narking on neighbors and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I know you have some tweets out there, and you've sort of connected BLM with what's happening now in Israel and Gaza and sort of COVID in between. So I'd kind of like to explore that. I should tell everyone the Rubin Report is where you get Dave, and you can subscribe today. It's a wonderful show, and I've been on it a few times, and I'd be happy to be on it again as well.
Well, let's just see how the rest of this goes.
So what is the sort of synopsis of this theory?
Of sort of the current thing theory, I think.
It's current and starting with BLM and moving through COVID and.
Sure. Well, the current thing is not a phrase that I came up with. It's sort of just been like this kind of internet meme that we just get caught in whatever the current thing is. So for a while it was BLM, and we had our Summer of Love where they're burning down buildings and telling us it's in the name of diversity and all that. Then COVID was sort of a current thing where college kids start, rampaging through cities again, while at the same time, because BLM, they've got masks on and they're outside, and you've got politicians saying, okay, you're allowed to go outside because this is for racism and that's more important than being sick. And
being killed through racism is more dangerous.
Right.
Poses a greater threat than this virus.
Do you remember?
Which, by the way, you guys say is killing everybody, and at an alarming rate, people of color. So you do understand what these asswipes are saying. They're saying this is a deadly disease, and primarily focused is killing at a much higher rate people of color. But people of color ignore all COVID protocols and hit the streets because it's more dangerous because of racism for you to be at home.
Yes, and this is what the kids would say is problematic, right? Like this absolute assault on sanity. So we have a series of things over the last couple of years. I would say Trump collusion was one of them. Mm-hmm. Just all of these things that the masses just sort of buy and believe in. And then over time, you slowly realize, this is what you were referencing before, like there's a set of people that wake up to the nonsense, but a lot of them don't know what to do with it. I think one of the things that the left did really, really well, I think they've done it for decades, but I would say about for guys like us, maybe about 10 years ago, they did really well, is this thing of calling everyone a Nazi and a racist. It's not just that no one wants to be called a Nazi and a racist and everything else. And it's not just that, ironically, the people who've been calling us all Nazis now have turned out to have far more to do with Nazis than
right.
we ever would have. It's what they're doing to themselves. Once you use that tactic on people, that tactic can be used on you. So that's one of the reasons that these movements keep getting stronger and stronger and more out of control, because these kids who are calling everybody Nazis and racists and everything, when they have their wake up moment, so like right now, a lot of people are waking up. There is if there's any silver lining to the horror of the last 3 weeks or so, it's that a good amount, whatever that sliver, that Bill Maher sliver of sane lefties are, they really are waking up, because a whole bunch of them, and a lot of this I would say are lefty Jews in particular, who've been in on all of this for unfortunate reasons, are suddenly like, whoa, beheadings, children being burned alive, all the stuff, right? And they're suddenly going, wait a minute, now they're coming for me. I got to figure out a way to distance myself from this thing. But it's really tricky when you've been running around calling everybody racist. So they've had a lot of, these things are by design. They're by design. And the way basically BLM overnight turned into a pro-Hamas organization it's incredible, but it's also obvious. It should not surprise anybody that this is happening now on college campuses. These kids, have you seen any of these videos where like a brave, kind of rogue journalist will ask any of these kids anything about Palestine, Who is the prime minister of Palestine before the occupation? Tell me
Yeah.
where it is. How big is Israel? Have they expanded even a mile in 50 years? And these kids know nothing.
Well, I know.
Nothing.
It kind of reminds me of hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. Like, you fuckers are experts at this shit. This is a word you learned to pronounce 10 minutes ago. But now you know what it is, CNN, and you know what it's for, and you know if it's effective. You didn't know any of this. You don't know. You formally knew nothing of this and had no concern. And now somehow it's your number one motivating force in life.
Everyone's an expert on everything.
We have more experts in Palestine and ivermectin in the last fucking 10 minutes than the world's history combined.
I would love to see an ivermectin Palestine Venn diagram. That would really be beautiful. It would be pretty big. They would all be on CNN, I think.
Right.
But have you seen, even if you were to look at, have you seen this map? There's this map that they always show on MSNBC of Palestine and how it slowly has disappeared over the years. Have you seen this map? It's a completely fabricated map that every time they put it out, they have to apologize for it because there never was a state of Palestine. There was the British mandate of Palestine. So all of these people that are screaming that the occupation for 75 years, they're calling for the British Empire to come back. That's literally what they're calling for. There was no Palestinian prime minister. The Palestinian soccer team in the 1920s, you guys could Google it right now, put the images up. It was all Jews. The Palestine Post, which is the Jerusalem Post now, once the state of Israel came to be, the modern state of Israel, they just changed the name. But the Palestine Post was the Jewish newspaper. The Arabs used to boycott Palestine. You can find New York Times articles in the 1940s and 30s because that's where the Jews lived. Like, it's so dumb. But this is where I would say you got to give the devil his due. These people brainwashed a huge amount of people. Could be hundreds of millions of Americans. Like, it's so depressing to think that nobody knows what reality is. And then if you further break their brains with boys or girls and all the other stuff that has just broken people's brains, Trump, Russia, all of the stuff, the selective prosecution of Trump now, you can see why people can't think straight on anything.
Well, so then here's the question, which is, what percentage of people think this is happening versus the percentage of people that realize it's much better to be on this side than it is to be on that side? Like, you take something like Hollywood.
Yeah.
The percentage of people that really thought COVID was going to get them versus the ones that realized if you're not on the COVID bandwagon, you're going to be canceled.
Right.
And this is a business decision.
Right. So you want the percentage of virtue signalers, basically, right?
Well, I mean, look, half the people I talked to that were wearing masks, I could see 1.5 nostrils. Like, on average, I would see the mask down around their chin. I would see the strap twisted on the side, which made a big gaping pouch. It opened. I could see from the side. I could see their lips. You know what I mean? Like,
and somehow, if you were sitting at a restaurant, you couldn't get COVID, but if you were standing, you could get. I mean,
yes. Listen, Mayor Garcetti's taking pictures at SoFi Stadium with Magic Johnson. He's saying, "I held my breath."
Yeah, he literally but they get away with it.
I get it, but he doesn't believe it.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like.
Well, that's the Rashida Tlaib thing. So we need a word for that. When you absolutely say a lie that you do not believe, but it's not just that you're lying. You're doing something even more perverse. It would be one thing to lie, to just straight up lie, but it's more twisted than that. It's more nefarious than that. That he can then say something so profoundly stupid. I held my breath. Oh, so are you saying a minute before that, before someone said, let's take a picture, were you not breathing next to Magic Johnson? Like, it's so profoundly stupid. We need a word for it.
Well, I did come up with this. I don't want to defend the man, and I can't remember if it was Garcetti or Newsom, but they're the same idiot. But I did say at the time, he talks out of his ass. Perhaps he can breathe out of his ass. So he may have just held his breath the entire time and let his ass do the breathing.
I'll give you that
one. It's a possibility.
What was your COVID policy when at the height of the whole thing, when they were making you wear masks to go everywhere in all the stores? What were you doing related to the masks? Because I got into a lot of fights with people. I was being yelled at left and right because my policy was, I'm not, even from day one. No, that's not quite true. I did the 2 weeks thing like everybody. So when I went to Whole Foods or whatever, I did the mask thing. But once Once we flipped on the 2 weeks thing and then they suddenly started saying a new normal, my policy was I'm not wearing a mask. If I get yelled at, I will put it on until the person walks away and then I'll take it down again. So I was getting yelled at Costco. I was getting yelled at Whole Foods. 2 or 3 days before I left LA, I'm not vaxxed. I had a friend make a fake vaccine passport so I could go. Boa Steakhouse on Sunset was that was like one of my favorite joints here. And I went to Boa with a fake passport, and I got in there, and I was not even. I was about to leave to move to Florida, but I go there and I'm sitting down and I'm having dinner with my in-laws, and I'm looking around, and a few people recognized me, and then it suddenly hit me. I was like, fuck. These people think that I actually got vaxxed, which is why I'm in here, and that I've been lying on my show. So I literally went up to three or four tables of people just to say, hey, just so you know, I faked this stupid thing. And then I was like, wow, I really have to leave now. Like, think how insane that is. I'm going up to my fans, apologizing to them for going out to eat. Like,
right.
The level of insanity.
I am a pattern studier. I don't really look at statistics. I just study patterns, and once I see a pattern and a break in the pattern or something that seems like an anomaly in a pattern, then I get suspicious, and so on and so forth. You know what I mean? It's like if somebody you never go to dinner with, but they invite you to dinner and they never pay and they insist on paying, they're going to ask for money at some point. Yeah. People have patterns. Yeah. You know what I mean? I know late people. I know early people. Dr. Drew's a super prompt person. I've shown up at the studio, and if Dr. Drew is not here and he's supposed to be here at 11 in the morning, I'm worried. There are other people,
something went down.
The late people, I have no thoughts about. It's like 11, they'll come rolling in 11:30 because they're the late person. So it's pattern. Very early, maybe just a few days into the COVID, I started hearing about COVID deaths on the radio, AM news kind of stuff, and they weren't giving the ages of the dead person. And I would always hear the age if someone got in a motorcycle crash. A man in Arleta was killed. A 53-year-old man from Arleta was shot and killed on his lawn. I was always like a 53-year-old man. A 28-year-old woman is in a car crash. All of a sudden, I just hear a man. And I hear no ages. And then my alarms go off in my head. Now, I don't know why. I'm just like, how come there's no ages? And then I realize there's no ages because these people are in their fucking 90s. Yeah. And it doesn't alarm. It's much more alarming to say a man than an 89-year-old man. That gives it context, and you can't poison and scare society. So I stopped hearing the ages, and then I immediately got suspicious. And then I started looking around, like, well, how old are these people? And I figured out quickly this was killing super old people. And then I knew it was on. Then I knew the grift was on. And I never cared for my own personal safety or anybody I knew because I immediately sussed out that this was not dangerous to younger, healthier people without comorbidities, pre-existing conditions. So I immediately signed off that it was nothing. And then I went about my life and I did the same thing you did. I walked around with a mask in my pocket, and if somebody said something in the store, I would hold it up like I was chloroforming myself. And then when they walked past, I'd put it back into my pockets. I immediately knew. I didn't know that masks were ineffective, but I knew that the application of the mask, the way we were using it, is ineffective. You having a mask, the second I heard mask up in between bites, I was like, it's completely over. This means nothing.
And of course, not only do masks not work for the reasons you said before, because there's gaps and holes in every which way, but we're conditioned to be social creatures. That's what humans are. So think about how many times during COVID, two people would bump into each other at a store or something that knew each other, and they'd be talking, and then they would take the mask down to talk. Right? Like it was just an endless assault on our brain and reason and everything else. But I want to give a guy who's a good buddy of both of ours some credit, because Dennis Prager, at the height of COVID, and Dennis I think he's 75 now, so he's about, let's say 73 at the time, and he's got a little bit of weight on him. I went to a Trump rally with him in Beverly Hills, and he, at the height of COVID, and we walked out there. We were both unvaxxed, and he said, Dave, you know what? If I get COVID here, I'll get an immunity to it, and it'll be just fine. And he did get COVID, and he was fine. And of course, the number one trend on Twitter is that Dennis Prager should die, and people wanted to kill him and all that kind of stuff. And he's still doing well, and he's lost a little weight since then, so it's all good.
I love the man.
Yeah.
And yes, so why aren't people able to connect dots? So I would have these kind of seminal moments where, as I've said on the show a few times, when Fauci started getting grilled by Rand Paul or Jordan or one of those guys, and started explaining that, churches and sporting events, schools were off limits, but BLM marches were fine, I was like, oh, he's been compromised.
Yeah.
So now I don't have to listen to him anymore. And when Rochelle Walensky gives her whole speech where, as a mom, my son wanted to go to summer camp and he'd count the days to go to summer camp, but he's not going to summer camp this year, even though she should have, but you should get your kids vaccinated. I was like, well, then, bitch, get your kid vaccinated and let him go fucking in a canoe, would you? And I was like, oh, now she's compromised. You know what I mean? And when you see Gavin Newsom eating at the French Laundry, you're like, I always say, I didn't say he was a hypocrite. I said he's not scared of this thing. He's not scared of it.
Well, he is a hypocrite, and he is evil,
he is
a lizard person.
Horrible.
We could go on, yeah.
But he does not fear this. What I'm saying is simply, I live part-time, at least on PCH in Malibu.
Yeah.
PCH in Malibu.
You're doing all right, Carolla.
Yeah.
So,
PCH in Malibu
really made it work.
It's not a safe highway to be riding a bike on.
Yeah.
I think 4 kids were killed there by like a car that jumped the curb the other day. And I was driving back to Malibu the other day, and I was driving along Sunset where you just go by OJ's old house and wine. And it was, the sun was going down. I mean, the sun was in a certain place about 5 in the afternoon, and it was kind of in my face. And there was some guy who was riding his bike right on Sunset. There is no sidewalk. There's no nothing. It's a windy 2-lane road.
Yeah.
The sun's in everyone's face as they're coming up the highway. Everyone's doing 45. And this guy's just pedaling along with cars are just buzzing by him. And I thought I wouldn't do that. It's too dangerous. I would never do that. And if my son wanted to do it, I would talk him out of it. But as far as the mask, not effective in COVID, it doesn't pose a threat to me. So I'm not suicidal.
Right.
And I'm not a hypocrite. I'm like, there's an activity I would not engage in. And as far as COVID, I'm putting the mask on to stand up at the restaurant and walk to the bathroom makes no logical sense at all. And I'm not doing it. And I bet the guy, this is the thought I had as I was driving past him.
As you plowed into this guy and took him out.
That's right. It's on the west side.
Hope he was vaxxed.
It's on the west side. He's an avid cyclist. He's wearing a helmet, although that's not going to do you much good when the guy in the Denali plows you.
Yeah.
I thought, I bet this guy was down with every COVID protocol. But yet he's engaging in a activity that is much more dangerous to him than COVID.
Right. That's what I'm talking about this sort of system that was put in place to break everyone's brains. And now almost nobody was consistent about any of this stuff. I think I was pretty good. I think you were pretty good. If anything, I regret, even the 2 weeks, I now regret that I did that, even for that period of time. But after the 2 weeks, as I said, I immediately woke up after that. But again, there is a place called Florida. And it is a free place that we have now outlawed all of the mandates and everything else. I didn't realize even how I don't like to be pushed into things. I never really realized it until COVID. But the second they were pushing for mandates, I was like, there is no way in high hell I'm going to get injected with this thing. I was like, nobody knows what it is. I'm young. I'm healthy, relatively young. I'm 47. I eat right. I take care of myself. But it was more about being pushed into it. Had they just put it out there, I'm sure you had it too. I had all sorts of pressure from my family and parents and all kinds of people. There might have been a way that I would have ended up doing it just to kind of shut people up. But once it was mandated, I was like, there is no way in high hell. And I'm obviously very happy that I did not get vaxxed. And I know several people probably some of whom you know that would not want me to say it publicly, who have vaccine injuries. I'm talking about heart injuries, balancing things, shingles, like a whole bunch of weird stuff that they did not have before the vax.
Dr.
The
Drew,
quote-unquote vax. It's not a vax.
Yeah, Dr. Drew tells me about myocarditis, and they're finding out more shit every day. All right, lots to get into, some tape. Oh, good, Joy Behar calls out.
She said something sane. It's a miracle. That's what I'm talking about. Some of the lefties.
It's a sad testimonial, though, that we have to stop and mark the twine when the LA Times, the New York Times, or somebody from The View says something that resembles something that lives in reality. It
literally took kidnapping of Holocaust survivors and beheading of babies to get Joy Behar to say something sane. Like that's how stupid everything was. That's how far we went down the road. I am.
All right, because I got kind of a theory with your tribe. All right, we'll take a quick break. Be right back. Dave Rubin right after this. Let me tell you about Just Thrive. You have so much stress. Sometimes you just want to hit the pause button and breathe. Just Calm from Just Thrive, well, they can help. Just Calm's all-natural blend of mood-lifting, psychobiotics, and brain-nourishing B vitamins helps you take back control and feel like your most cool, calm, and collected self. Multiple studies prove it works quickly to soothe everyday stress and sharpen focus in as little as 4 weeks. Or you can do the Just Thrive probiotic. That's what I take every day, a spore probiotic that banishes gas and bloat and gut. It lets your gut produce serotonin, more serotonin, which is your happy hormone. Plus, it supports better sleep. It's just, and now the science is in. It's the gut controlling the mind, not the mind controlling the gut. And you got to get your gut right. I know Tina Anderson. She came in here, had dinner with her and her husband. They're very passionate about this product, and it's because it works. It's Just Thrive, right, Dawson?
With Just Calm and Just Thrive probiotic, you'll have the ultimate stress-fighting duo to help you feel cool, collected, and in control. Get 20% off your first 90-day bottle of Just Calm and Just Thrive probiotic today. Visit JustThriveHealth.com and use promo code Adam.
Dave Rubin in the studio. A little slice of sanity in a gloomy world of insanity. The Rubin Report is where you go. Subscribe today. It's a great show. And I'll give you his website, daverubin.com. So the Jews here as
you got to be careful, man. Jews are a little nervous right now, but I'll work with you.
I'm always a fan. I'm a fan of the culture. As the great Dennis Prager says, I wish they would preach what they practice because they're into family, they're into education, and they excel. And then they pretend to be down with every left-wing cause, which destroys families and education.
It's a deep failure of liberalism that many Jews got attached to for a series of reasons after the Holocaust. If you want to do that, but go ahead.
The Jews strike me, at least in this town, as the nerdy kids in high school that don't want to get beat up again and they go along with whatever is happening. So they're down with Black Lives Matter, even though they think they're all nuts and would never live in a black neighborhood and would never send their kids to a school that was predominantly black and would be scared to walk through any black neighborhood and look at them as essentially animals that need to be controlled or fixed by the government because they're not capable of taking care of themselves. But they will be down with every popular cause because they know they have a target on their back. And it's like this. It's like there's an NBA owner who's Jewish, and he's 73 years old, and he shows up in the locker room, and he's wearing a velour sweat outfit with a big gold chain. He's like, hey, just listen to my man Jay-Z. You know what I mean? Yeah. He doesn't do any of that, but all his players are black, and they're in their 20s, and he has to be down.
Well, there's a couple. So first off, I'm with you. What you're talking about is when you say this town, you're talking about Hollywood and L.A. and whatever. So you're talking about a certain set of largely secular kind of reform Jews who I would say are just like, they're almost sort of at the end of Seinfeld. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like you're Jewish because, you know, you like bagels and you like Seinfeld and you watched a couple episodes of Curb and like that that sense of humor and that sort of outlook kind of works, but you don't really believe in any of the things that your grandparents believed in and everything else. I would say, I mean, this is a very twisted thought, but this is somewhat the success, I would say, of what Hitler did. That after the Holocaust, when so many Jews then came to America, the whole idea was assimilate at the highest possible level. And that was a beautiful thing in an America that worked for assimilation, because the idea that you could bring your foods and your traditions and your language and that stuff, but you fold into America. And Jews probably did it more at a successful rate, more than anybody else. But unfortunately, what that led to is what you're talking about now, which is because of knowing that we are a people that have been kicked across the globe and right now finally have a state that will allow us to fight back. And now the whole world doesn't even want us to fight back. There was this trade, this odd trade, which is what you're referencing, of like, we'll kind of be for anything as long as it keeps the stuff off us. Mm-hmm. And there's a reason look, if you look at the photos, the incredible photos of Martin Luther King Jr. marching across the bridges and all that stuff, when he's hand in hand, it's almost all Jews that he was with.
Right.
Because Jews were like, oh, we've been pogromed and holocausted and treated horribly in all of these countries, and Inquisition and blah, blah. So we will fight for the just causes. Unfortunately, what happened in America is once black people became equal, and then I would say the last thing really was gay marriage in terms of minorities gaining equality, then, as you know, equality became about equity. And once it became about equity, instead of even playing field, it became equal results. That was going to be really bad for the Jews. The Jews do not fit in the intersectional calculator. By every estimation, Jews shouldn't even exist. There are many cultures that have been through far less, that have been blown apart. I mean, Native Americans, look what's left of Native Americans. Their culture has been annihilated. If you look at what Jews have been through, Jews kind of shouldn't be here. And that also drives not only a certain amount of hatred for Jews here, but it drives the hatred of Israel, because then it really doesn't make sense. Wait a minute. These oppressed people actually have guns now and can defend themselves and are occasionally going to go on the offense when their grandmother has been slaughtered. And people don't know how, because leftism has broken brains. People do not know how to quantify that or to react to it. I gave you a lot there.
No, thank you. And I agree. And I'm starting to wonder how much of this is an actual position from many of these people, or how much of it is just pure adolescent defiant disorder.
I would love to. Yeah.
Every single policy that Gavin Newsom lays down, I think he thinks to himself, what would piss off John Wayne the most? He goes, I know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get rid of all standards and testing at all schools for people of color and
right.
blah, blah, blah. And then he does it. Like, it's literally, there's no way it can be this consistent.
Didn't they just put an Amber Alert, a special Amber Alert now for black children? Like, how insane is that? Didn't they just do that? I'm not making that up.
Every single thing, yes, they did.
Yeah.
It's called an Ebony Alert. And
Is that what it's really called? That's hilarious.
It's called an Ebony Alert. And every single policy they have is just the opposite of whatever a sane person.
Right.
Or, let me put it this way. A pragmatic person says, what's the problem? Black and brown people are underscored in testing and they're not performing. A pragmatic, sane person would say, well, then we need to figure out a way to get this group to work harder at math and English.
Right.
And
What's
tutor
going
them
on
and
there?
What's going on there? He then says, I'm going to just lower the bar. Like, it's literally, it is no different. I mean, I just said this on Gutfeld the other night, but it is exactly the same as if you said we have a problem with adolescent weight. We have a problem with weight. They have diabetes. They have they're morbidly obese. This is a problem, and you say, then confiscate all the scales. There's no more weighing of kids. It's literally you're saying you can't.
Right.
Let's make it illegal for a doctor to weigh a child when he comes in for a checkup, and then we're going to fix this problem. Every single one of their solutions of like, there's too many prostitutes, and it affects women of black women of color, Hispanic women, and it's tested. It affects black and brown people. And then they go, "What is the solution?" And they go, "Make it legal, make prostitution legal, and then get rid of testing." I mean, Oregon, I don't know if you have that, just came out. They just said we're not going to be tested. You do not have to read, write, or do math at a high school level, and you will graduate because we're done testing.
Think how dangerous, though, this really is. Like, when you scale that up, it's not that the high school kid doesn't know anything and that's like a huge danger right now. It's a danger over time. But think about it. So this high school kid who knows nothing now, right? He then gets into college because of the color of his skin. And so now he's already failed at high school. Now he fails at college. Now grad school. So now let's say he's pre-med or something. He now gets into the medical school with lesser qualifications, not know what he's doing. Then he gets the job at the hospital, right? So he's an intern at a hospital, knows less. Then eventually they're looking for heart surgeons, and they look at all the things and they go, boy, well, we better take this black kid, not because he's good at anything, but he just works. And then next thing you know, Adam Carolla has a coronary one day, and you've got some kid who has no idea what he's doing. And you can extrapolate that to the pilots on our planes.
Yes.
I mean, it's why Cali is failing in so many ways. You could look at it that way, because who in their right mind wants to be here building good things? Nobody.
Well, 100%
for many
right.
reasons.
And there's a more insidious part of this whole thing that it creates. It's Adam is getting the triple bypass, and the black surgeon walks in the room, and I think, oh, is he the best? Or is he here because he got pushed to the front of the line because of the color of skin? Now, I don't want to have that.
Of course.
And I don't want no 19-year-old kid, black kid, walking through the quad at Harvard wants people passing him going, I know why he's here.
But by the way, what's her name? Joy Reid, who from the televised mental institution, MSNBC, she said, I think she went to Harvard. Could someone check if she went to Harvard or one of these schools? And she basically said, the only reason I was let in was because I was black, and that was her way of selling affirmative action to us. But it's like, well, you're horrible at what you do. You're a deeply dishonest merchant of nonsense and a leftist lunatic. But how does that make you feel good?
It's early. Joy Reid, though, was early money on what we started our conversations. Yes, she went to Harvard, so says my screen. To give her due, she was a pioneer of the feelings equaling truth.
Yeah.
She sent out a bunch of tweets that were sort of anti-gay, maybe anti-Semitic, I don't know, but certainly anti-gay. And at some point she got called out on it because she's now a hypocrite because she's on MSNBC. So she sends out a bunch of anti-gay tweets, and then she gets called out on it. And then she says, that wasn't me.
Her website got hacked.
Somebody got hacked. We must get the FBI or some forensic expert to come in, some cyber forensic expert to do it, check into this. And then they checked into it, and they were like, nope, wasn't hacked. That was you. And she's like, I don't feel like I'm the kind of person who would do that. That's not who I am.
Democrat privilege,
Oh,
man.
my
It's the
God.
only privilege. You know, she did something. You know that thing that you mentioned before that's kind of between lying and propaganda, and we're trying to come up with like the right phrase for that. She did one that was one of, I played this clip on my show like 20 times. You probably saw it. Remember the Uvalde shooting in Texas about a year ago? It was the one at the where it was like 18 kids. It was horrific. Mm-hmm. She went on her show the next day and opened her show by saying that the shooter had no mental health issues. This was all about the gun. And it's such a profoundly insane statement, regardless of what you think about guns or gun control or the Second Amendment. The idea that you could just like that, get on television and say this young person, I think he was like 20, 22, something like that, no mental health issues. By the very definition, if you walk into a school and you shoot 18 innocent kids, you have a mental health problem. Like any psychiatrist would say that. But she's so deep in the BS, they're so deep in the narrative that she wants to sell her audience who are mind-numbingly ridiculous buffoons watching MSNBC after all the lies that they have peddled across the board, some of which we hit here. She has the gall to go on her show and say that. And then she still keeps her show. You know, it's like none of these people ever get fired, which is also interesting. Although they got rid of Stelter, which there must have been some kind of...
I probably wasn't rating.
Yeah.
Dawson, you have that article, sorry, from out of Oregon.
Yes, Oregon suspends basic skills graduation requirement, citing harm to students of color. High schoolers in Oregon won't need to demonstrate basic competency in reading, writing, or math in order to graduate for at least 5 more years because, according to education officials, such requirements are unnecessary and disproportionately harm students of color.
All right.
It's racism. That is actual racism. You black person cannot know math like whitey. And
Well, it's first things first. You have no idea how much damage you're causing this group that you're trying to help. Obviously, it is no different than outlawing weighing kids in a doctor's office. It is exactly the same thing. Are you helping that child? So this disproportionately affects people of color. Black and brown people. First off, I have said to a couple of black people, but I should probably say to more, are you not bothered by this? And if so, why aren't you? Why aren't you saying something
Well,
about
I assume
this?
the black people that'll talk to you are probably on your side of this thing, right? You're not walking, wandering out to Compton and
I've asked a couple of sort of black comedians who have opened for me, or I've seen at a comedy club.
And what do they say?
Like that.
What do they say?
Not really. They kind of like it. You know what I mean? It's
that's dangerous. It's really dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't surveyed thousands of black individuals, but I don't hear them saying, first off, Joe Biden, okay. The fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Ray from FBI and all these people have been saying for 2.5 years that white supremacy is the biggest domestic problem we have. Now, those rallies for Palestine are in Hamas. Are those clans? Who's doing those rallies? Klansmen?
Nope.
Where is the white supremacy? Like when the red-haired kid's getting the shit beat out of him by the black teen in the hall of the school that we see on the internet every other day. What is that? Who are you talking about? What is this? And you are doing so much damage to black people by trying to convince them that they live in a racist society. If I had a 19-year-old son and I successfully convinced him that he had a target on his back, that we're living in a systemically oppressive, racist society, and that all cops were gunning for you, then if a cop asks you to get out of the car, you might be smart to try to tackle him.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you? I mean...
Right. You think this is it. This is it. We had the talk. I told you had a target on your back. And so does the president, and so does the head of the FBI, and so does the vice president, and so does everyone on CNN. And so does everyone at the New York Times and the LA Times. They've been spoon-feeding. If you're a 15-year-old black kid, you got to be seething with rage at this point. It's so sad what they did to America. You know, you were a couple years older than me, I think, but like Gen X, basically. So we're both Gen X. Like, we grew up in a time in this country that was so freaking good, and we had no idea. Nothing was cool about racism when we were growing up, 80s, 90s, early 2000s. Nothing was cool about that. We put so much of the nonsense behind us. We were really, if you could just, right now, if you had a freaking DeLorean and 1.21 gigawatts, if we could just reverse to 1995 and play the game a little bit differently, we could do it so much better, because it really was right. We had done so much in so many ways, and maybe there were a few little things we could have changed on the margins to be better, but it's unfortunate, and this is a failure. I would say it's a failure of America's success.
Yes.
So many of the problems now are just because good times create weak men, and we just let it go. And I think the future of America, especially if we get another Democrat administration after this, not that all problems are solved by politics, but I don't know that America can survive another 4 years of this type of administration. I live in the free state of Florida, so it'll be a little different for me because we're building a moat with a lot of gators. And I'll give you the password. But
thank you. I want another tomahawk steak. I will tell you what happened. When we were younger, and you heard, 80s, 90s, and before that, and you saw a black comedian, a lot of the black comedians in their routine would do a joke where they'd go, I think even Eddie Murphy would do it. They go like, could you imagine if we elected a black president and then the joke was, he'd be running serpentine to, the Air Force One and whatever it is. He'd be assassinated. But there's a lot of ways to mark the end of a racist society. Do away with 2 drinking fountains and 2 lunch counters and a separate door at a hotel for black citizens to enter. But the one that everyone kind of agreed on is when we elect a black president, it's over. Mm-hmm. You literally
that was the thing. That was the goal
and
to get
so
to.
So the joke was it's never going to happen, and if we did, he'd be assassinated in his inauguration or whatever. But it was sort of the de facto symbol of we're now done. We've officially done as a racist nation. We've elected a black president, and so we did elect a black president, and then a second term from a black president. And what happened was all the race hustlers and all the Joy Reids of the world and all the people that just relied on this, they went, oh, fuck, we got to double down. Now we got to hit it hard.
As Chris Rock says, the cops need a certain amount of crime.
Right.
That's the idea.
So everybody doubled down on your talking points because we did something that flies in the face of what we're saying. We're saying we live in a horribly racist society. We have a black president with 2 terms. So everybody hit it harder. And that's what happened. That's where we're at now.
You're totally right. And the way you can even look at that at a more granular level is if you just think of all of it's not just the race hucksters like the Al Sharptons and those guys, right? Like they were almost out of a gig. But all of the nonprofits, once gay marriage happened, for example, GLAAD, the human rights organization, all of these things, they could have closed up shop. They could have thinned out the ranks and been like, boy, we got equality. That's what people were always fighting for. Now it has morphed into this horrific LGBTQ LMNOP thing that has nothing to do with rights or equality or anything else. But there's a certain amount of money that goes into these things. These are organizations with an awful lot of power, and they don't want to put that power down. And then they took what were just causes. Obviously, the march to civil rights is a just cause. Anything that gets people to be equal, which is what we have in America, is just. But they won't leave just alone. And that was the difference between going for equality for everybody, which was that was the dream. That was the thing. Think about this. Bill Cosby, The Cosby Show. I mean, I remember watching Bill Cosby himself, 1983. I was 7 years old. I thought it was the funniest thing imaginable, buckled over on the floor in my family room. And then Cosby gets the #1 sitcom on NBC, 8 p.m. for 7 years. I think it was #1 for about 5 years. But he was a OBGYN. His wife was a lawyer. They were super successful. Brooklyn Heights. Everybody loved him. No, there was no racist movement against Cosby. You could take putting aside all the other Cosby stuff, obviously, there's a direct through line from what Cosby did on that show to then getting Barack Obama to be president. But nobody in 1985, when that show debuted, was pissed that the #1 show was a black comedian. Nobody. Right. And as a matter of fact, most of his audience was white. I went to many of his shows, and white people love Bill Cosby.
Of course. We have a clip, and you can look for that clip. I don't know why. There's certain things that stick in my head, and it bugs the hell out of me. The part where that clip of Biden, we have it from several months ago, where he's talking about baggage fees. And he's talking about how it disproportionately affects poor people and black and brown people. And I'm like, do you have a separate category?
Also, they've been working on that thing for a while, but did you know that he also tweeted it out? He doesn't tweet, obviously. They would let him nowhere near a phone. But on October 7th, the day that all hell was breaking loose in the Middle East, they put that out again. And it's like, how tone deaf. Or it's intentional. Everything they do is designed to break brains.
This is Vince Everett Ellison, who's just a cannon firecracker. I mean, this guy's awesome. He was on with Tucker. It was a week ago, he did about 7 minutes. I just told Chris to whack it down to like 3 minutes. But he hits the BLM thing pretty hard.
To a white Democrat, this is the perfect black man. Why? Because this is how they see black America.
George Floyd, by the way.
They see us the same way they see George Floyd. Well, if you think that the Democratic Party is great, let them come to Detroit. Let them come to Chicago. Anywhere where they rule, you'll see George Floyd's all over the place. And they're proud of them. Think about an old slave plantation in Tucker back in the day. How they wanted their slaves to act. Subservient, obedient, ignorant, not asking any questions, being dependent on them. This is how they want black men to be in America. It started in the civil rights movement when Martin Luther King Jr. in his I Have a Dream speech said 5 times in that speech that we were not free. It turned the Declaration of Independence on its head, because in our Declaration of Independence it said that our freedom was an unalienable right given us by God. However, King said that we was coming to government and to the white man for our right to be free. Even at the end of the speech, he said, on some certain day, we'll be free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. And so black people heard that speech and said that we were not free here in America. And we make our children recite that speech every single year on King's birthday. George Floyd was a slave in his mind. And today they're still marching, 60 years later, telling black people, you're not free. Beg for reparations, beg for affirmative action. And then they end up like George Floyd. But the one thing they do consistently is they vote for the Democrat Party, and the places where George Floyd's live, they stay in absolute power.
That's a pretty dark explanation. So you're saying that the Democratic Party as an organization intentionally degrades black people to keep them compliant and obedient.
They humiliate black people. They demoralize them. It's a Marxist construct. They demoralize their people. They beat them down. They tell them that they're victims. You're oppressed. The country hates you. LeBron James said he's afraid. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar says he's afraid. Kaepernick said he's afraid. Well, I'm a black man in America, and I'm not afraid of a damn thing. I don't ask for permission in my own house. America is my home.
So the Democratic Party used BLM as a domestic militia in the last presidential cycle, 2020, to defeat Donald Trump. Do you expect something like that to happen again?
Even at the beginning, they used the Ku Klux Klan for their military reign. Now they're using BLM, they're using Antifa, they're using NAACP. They're their shock troops. They're their brown shirts. They're their street soldiers. And they're going to go out there, and I guarantee you, Tucker, they're going to look over all the black-on-black violence, and they're going to find one crazy white cop that's going to do something to some crazy black man, and then they're going to try to burn this country down for it. That's their plan. That's their template. I hope America's ready for it, because it's coming, and it always works for them. BLM is going to start getting their money from the Democrat Party, because that's who they get it from. The same way that Hamas gets their money from Iran. And BLM does not stand for Black Lives Matter. It stands for burn, loot, and murder. And that's what we should call them from now on.
Vince Everett Allison.
Damn, he's good. Guy. He's good. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's dark, but it's true. What do the Democrats offer anyone other than handouts? Where is show me a Democrat city that is being run well. Can I tell you something amazing that happened on my show one day? So we're going through the homeless stuff and the shootings, right? So it's become a running joke on my show on Mondays. I never planned for it, but something happens with the shooting, and then I ask how many people got shot in Chicago this weekend, and we do an over-under. And, usually it's about 40 people shot, about 15 people killed. And of course, it's always black people shooting black people, which is why it never gets on mainstream media, except for Hannity hits that every now and again. One day, we're talking about homeless people on my show, and I'm looking at the numbers. Oh, I had just come back from San Francisco, and you've been there lately.
I've been there a week
and you've
ago.
seen the video. Yeah, it's unimaginable, right? It does not look like an American city. So we're looking at the numbers, and actually it's something like this. San Francisco has about 30,000. LA has about 70,000, but LA is much bigger than San Francisco, so per capita, San Francisco is much worse. We're going through all the numbers, and then I said, I don't know what the number is, but I don't see any homeless people here in Miami. I see none. Literally, as I'm live on air, I look out of the corner of my eye, my phone, I have a text from the mayor of Miami. And he says, Dave, I'm watching your show. I know how many it is. It's 380, and we're working on it. And I was like, man, Francis Suarez, Republican. I was like, that is how you run a city. You don't have to watch my show, but like that this guy's on the ball, paying attention to what's important culturally and everything else. And you can go anywhere. in Miami, and you are safe basically any time, and that is just completely the reverse of any Democrat-run city, period.
Our mayor...
Wait, who's the mayor here now? It's that one, Karen Bass, right?
Karen Bass. Yes, perfect.
Funny you still live here.
I know. Our mayor was giving a speech to Democrats, and I don't think she wanted this out there, but I heard it on the radio. She attributes the problem in L.A. for homelessness because of the wealth gap. That's not fentanyl, not mental issues, the gap.
Too many rich people.
The fact that Jay-Z and Beyonce bought a house for $200 million in Malibu is the reason this guy's rolling in his own filth in fucking South Central under
Adam,
a freeway.
we've been around a lot of rich people. Like, rich people hire a lot of people.
They create
You're doing all right. You got a lot of people that work for you. You have businesses. You have buildings. You create things. Like, the idea that they try to make this about, even if you were to take whatever, you took the top 100 billionaires in America and you took 90% of their money away and put it into the system, do you think you've solved anything? Of course not.
Well, whatever you think. Look, Dr. Drew 3 years ago said, I am an addiction medicine specialist. I mean, I told Gavin Newsom when he sat where you're sitting 10 years ago, and I told him what the cause of the homeless problem was.
We've played it on my show 20 times.
Good.
It's a great clip.
I
don't credit you for it, of course. I cut you out, but we have.
There's a clip where I'm arguing with him about myriad things.
It's just great.
But one of the things that people miss on that is a homeless discussion toward the end, I believe. And I just said, he said that was his number one issue. And I said, good, because the number one issue with homeless is drugs and it's mental illness. 10 years ago. And he said, what about the real face of homelessness? The mother of two who had a full-time minimum wage job and just got divorced. And I'm like, that person doesn't exist. And neither does the wealth gap in terms of contributing to homelessness. So how would one ever solve a problem if one, or the black and brown kids that aren't performing to the standard at the testing at schools? Okay, shut down the testing. Make it illegal to weigh fat kids at the doctor's office. Of course it's not going to impact the problem. You're going to, it'd be like me saying, oh, my car's overheating. Well, let me whack it with some sage and I'll get a shaman in here. It's like, no, pop the hood, flush the radiator.
Yeah.
Or your thermostat's bad or something. It's not this. This can't do anything.
The fact that man destroyed San Francisco as mayor, and then, as I said, the only privilege in America is Democrat privilege. He then fails up, becomes governor of California, has basically decimated this state, and now has his sights on the White House. It's so profoundly insane. It's so American Psycho and Machiavellian level craziness with this guy, but he's going to do it. He is going to do it.
He's literally like, I start by destroying San Francisco, then I move on to destroying California. I can see him with his war room, moving his stuff. Now I destroy the United States.
You know that he didn't close his winery when he was closing all the wineries during the lockdowns? He has that Plump Jack winery, 20-something acres up there. He somehow kept his winery open while the other wineries closed. And that meal, you know this, that meal at French Laundry, it was with lobbyists. Like, it's just like, you cannot, the gall, it's just incredible. It's just incredible.
And then he does commercials where he says, come to California to be free.
To be free. The fact that he can say that word, it's,
we have the little 13-second clip with Biden, which I love.
Up front. And will prohibit airlines from charging $50 round trip per family just to be able to sit together. Baggage fees are bad enough. Airlines can't treat your child like a piece of baggage.
Well, it's not the clip I was looking for, but it's still kind of funny.
Basic idea.
Is it really? Here's what I'm saying about Biden. Do we really want him wading into this baggage water, this pool of baggage? I mean, you've got to have bigger fish to fry than baggage. We can figure that out.
Putting aside, Adam, the fact that the founders would have a hard time realizing what a plane might be, right? The idea of flying would be a little foreign to them. The idea that they would go, boy, 250 years from now, a man with dementia is going to be standing up there very poorly reading off a teleprompter something about what type of bags you put on a plane and who, like that has anything to do with the government. They created the most beautiful man-made documents in the history of the world to free people, and a man with dementia is talking about baggage fees on airplanes. It has nothing to do with the government, but it gets to your point earlier when you were talking about the Democrats. They can just, and it gets to, what was the guy's name on Tucker?
Everett.
I mean, he's getting to all they have gifts for them. That's it, because none of the policies work. We will chop your kids' genitals off and we will tell them that they're growing up in an evil, racist place. But don't worry, you'll get an EBT card to go to Burger King. And people are like, I like EBT cards.
Well, we have some news. Maybe we'll get to it. I'm kind of enjoying this. We'll see. And I also want to follow up on the Founding Fathers thought, and we'll do that right after this. Let me tell you about Angie homeowners. You know, it's a lot of work to own a home, whether it's everyday maintenance, repairs, or dream projects. It can be hard to even know where to start. All you need is Angie, your home for everything home. Find a skilled local pro who will deliver quality and experience. Over 20 years of home service experience. Bring them your project online or with the Angie app. Answer a few questions and Angie handles the rest. Look, you're busy. You don't have time to do all this stuff. Let Angie handle it. Take care of just about any home project in just a few taps. Download the free Angie mobile app today. Or visit online. Visit Angie.com. That's ANGI.com. ANGI.com. That's Angie. Let them do all the heavy lifting.
It's time to check Adam's voicemail.
Ace man, a little drunk right now at Animal Kingdom. Just tried shawarma for the first time and instantly thought of you trying to get the half and half plate, and they wouldn't do it. Fuck those people. Get it on. I fucking love this show. You're the man. Rock on.
You can leave us a message at 888-634-1744.
Yeah, they're definitely pro-Hamas, those shawarma guys who wouldn't give me a 50-50 shawarma. It was like the most Seinfeldian conversation I ever had. I walked into the Zanku and I was like in Van Nuys, and I go, they had the spit with the shawarma stacked. They had chicken and they had the lamb and beef.
Oh, you tried to combine?
They're both $7.99. They were the same price. You get the chicken plate or you get the beef plate. I said, give me the 50-50 plate. And the girl over there was probably protesting out in the streets right now for Hamas. She's like, we can't do it. And I'm like, no, I don't want double the meat. I want the same amount of meat. Just get the electric knife. Give me one swipe. You do 2 swipes with the electric knives? Like, yeah, do one with the chicken and one with the lamb. And they're like, no. And I was like, but why not? It's like, we can't. We don't do it. And I go, they're 4 feet apart. And by the way, I've been in here and got it 5 times. This is what I get. And she's like, sorry, no. And then I said, can't you just do it? And she goes, I could get into trouble. I said, you know what? Go get your manager. And she goes, he's not here. I go, well then, how could you get into trouble then? I don't know. Go to a party, get drunk, start talking. People find out. I was like,
so what'd you do? You went with the lamb. You went with the lamb.
You want to know the kind of, this is a young Adam, but this is the same Adam that said, fuck you to everything COVID. I said, where's the other Zanku? And she's like, deep Hollywood, like deep West Hollywood. No, not West Hollywood. Deep, like Western Hollywood, right. You know, Koreatown.
Nobody wants to go there. Yeah.
Koreatown. I'm in fucking Van Nuys.
Yeah.
I'm on Sepulveda in Van Nuys. And I go, I'm now going to the other Zanku Chicken. It's a 45-minute drive with traffic. And I'm getting my 50-50 fucking shawarma plate.
And they did it over there for you.
And she's like, go ahead. And I left. I got my car and I sat in LA traffic for 45 minutes and I drove to a part of town I didn't want to be in. And I walked in and I said, I want a 50-50 shawarma plate. And the guy's like, would you like a Coke with that? And I was like, God damn it.
You were like, I'll have half Coke, half Sprite.
That's right. I'm giving you a suicide. Oh, God. All right. Do we ever find that tape of Biden with the baggage? I know he brings up baggage. I mean, it's one of the planks in his platform is baggage handling fees, but it's the black and brown person.
I know we're looking, and sadly, if you try to even search Biden baggage, it brings up that guy who was stealing all the baggage.
Oh yes,
it's nuclear,
nuclear. Yes, another wizard. I was shocked that one didn't work out. Wasn't that like, oh my God, I can't believe it that this person was actually like a chronic.
That's the creepiest. If you woke up in the middle of the night and that guy was standing at the foot of your bed, you would be shell shocked. Like, I mean, you'd be in therapy. You'd have to have your own a therapist assigned to you to travel with you everywhere you went. You would be destroyed mentally. I mean, that's what that guy looked like.
Once again, proving my theory that they are trying to break people's brains.
Well,
literally, that's why they hire these people. That's why Richard Levine, a man who lived his entire life as a man, had children, is now known as Rachel Levine. It's a little unclear whether or not he has a penis. I've had my team Google it many times, and they're not happy with me. But he has said, do you ever see that video where he goes, you know who I'm talking about?
Oh, God.
Where he goes, my children are the greatest joy in my life, and I'm so happy I didn't transition earlier. But now he's pushing trans kids, they're not trans, confused kids to transition. But the greatest joy in his life, and he is a dude, is the fact that he has kids. And he's trying to now take that away from a bunch of very confused, 8 to 15-year-olds, let's say. Well,
so there's this very dangerous affirmative action thing that goes on, which is, or the two folks, I almost said gentlemen, we were speaking of.
Not gentlemen.
Whatever. Yeah. The fucking shit show train wrecks that are there. You're right. That's just a brain scramble. But then there's Kamala Harris, who's a shit show and a disaster and maybe theoretically could be running this country.
Literally, right. The guy could break his hip right now. We are on the verge of World War III. We truly are.
Yes.
I don't think people realize how out of control things are. And quite literally, she could be president in a minute from now.
Right, because she's a woman of color.
Yeah.
But
great gal.
How would it work? I mean, let's just see if we can parse this out a minute.
Yeah.
I am trying to put together an NFL winning franchise. And I go, all right, let's build this thing from the ground up. I want to find the best coach I can find out there, the best head coach, as long as it's a woman of color. And then we have the best defensive coordinator out there. The caveat is it'd be good if they were of color or gay or transitioning or something, but
something with the genitals isn't quite right.
Something with the genitals. All right, and now I'm going to put together. I'm going to get an offensive coordinator. Same rules apply, and as far as the quarterback goes, we'll have the same rules apply. And we're going to need some LGBT representation on the defensive side of the ball. So some, not the entire defense, but let's say a cornerback, a free safety, and an outside linebacker.
Although you ever see a bunch of lesbians play rugby? Because honestly, that could work, but okay.
What do you think? How do you think that team would perform if that was the caveat? How would the team perform? And if the answer is, well, it gets the shit kicked out of it every single Sunday, then why should we run government that way? And if you kind of wonder about the sort of, there's you wherever you look in the cabinet, it's like, it's a female or black or whatever, and you go, let's get Karine Jean-Pierre because we have the first woman of color lesbian spokesperson. Yeah, but she's horrible. She's horrible at her job.
Yeah.
I mean, she just
doesn't matter. Does not matter to these people. The reason I always call Pete Buttigieg Gay Pete on my show, I don't have a problem with gay people. My husband's gay. You've met.
Oh yeah. Wait a minute, that makes you gay.
Well, just after 10 p.m. But I call him Gay Pete not because I'm making fun of his sexuality. I'm calling him Gay Pete because that's why he got the job.
Right.
Pete Buttigieg was the mayor of South Bend, Indiana. He is now the head of the Department of Transportation. It makes no sense whatsoever. He wasn't an urban planner. He didn't even live in a big city. He maybe took care of a couple potholes as mayor, but this is what they have decided to do. And then we wonder why nothing kind of works.
In South Bend, I believe that some local chain like Domino's Pizza or something actually got the money together to fill the potholes themselves. Because
so Gay Pete didn't even do that?
Pete, no, and then Gay Pete gives speeches about bridges being racist.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, what I'm saying is, how could it work? So now the defensive coordinator has called a meeting of all the defensive, but make sure there's some LGBT representation on the defensive side of the ball. And we're playing the Vikings this weekend, but we're not going to talk about blitz strategies or nickel packages or dime packages. We're going to talk about inclusion and equity and diversity. And that's the conversation he's going to have. All right. And now we're going to play the game. How the fuck is this going to work?
Not well. Not well. You must know him, Clay Travis. He's probably been on your show, right? So, Clay, I think, has become one of the really great, political talkers these days because he's a sports guy first.
Yeah.
So once the exact stuff that you just described there, once we're giving Caitlyn Jenner Woman of the Year award at the ESPYs and all of this nonsense, once that infected sports, it made a certain set of people that don't particularly care about politics. He doesn't strike me as now he's a big political guy, but it was able to be translated from, you're going to take out sports, which is the most colorblind thing there is. I'm more of a basketball guy. So when I was in high school, I go to the park to play ball. You were never thinking about anything other than, can I just get the best bunch of guys together and play ball and see what happens? I used to play ball with the midget. I used to play basketball with the midget who was pretty damn good, Danny, in Long Island. He played point guard. You know what's funny about this guy? He wore a David Robinson jersey, which of all jerseys to wear.
Admiral?
He was 7'1" David Robinson.
I played a basketball game against a team of midgets.
Really?
I don't want to be a one-upper. Continue with your story.
No, I want to hear about that. Was it just you versus all of them?
Yeah, it's like Goliath. Or I was Lilliputians or Lilliputans or God, what was that?
I'm not sure.
What's the story I'm looking at, Dawson? The Lilliputians.
What?
Lilliputians. You're gonna know what it is.
Something
in
about
a second.
Something about midgets.
Yeah, the guy was. The giant who was strapped down on the beach with
Gulliver's Travels.
Gulliver's Travels. Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway,
Little Puchin.
The Lillipumpkin.
Lilliputians. We'll spell that out. Lilliputians. And find the Karine Jean-Pierre thing with the somebody asking her about anti-Semitism, and she goes right into Islam, which is basically. I now know how you people are thinking. You've shown me how you think, which is scary, but at least
this is something else.
I know. Yeah. No, I played with Jimmy Kimmel and Kevin and Bean from K-Rock, and we played as part of the morning show. We played an all-midget team. There's an actual
there's video of this.
Footage of me playing against.
Let's see it, Carolla.
Midgets. I'm standing in the background. We don't need to see it.
All right, wait, give me 10 seconds of this thing or something.
That's Jimmy.
Yeah.
You got the ball has to bounce.
Look, see these guys. Look, that guy's got a good handle. Look at that.
Listen, they're a professional midget basketball team. All right, keep going.
God bless them.
We'll play the Karine Jean-Pierre.
That was a short clip.
Yes.
There you go.
This is how she thinks. I mean, all these people do is.
They're in service of the nonsense. That's what it is.
Yes, in service of the nonsense. Here's the question. Here's her answer.
Level of concern right now about the potential rise of anti-Semitism in light of everything that's going on in Israel?
So a couple of things. We have not seen any credible threats. I know there's been always questions about credible threats, and so just want to make sure that that's out there. But look, Muslim and those perceived to be Muslim have endured a disproportionate number of hate-fueled attacks.
Untrue.
And certainly President Biden understands that many of our Muslim
5 to 1.
Arab Americans and Palestinian American loved ones and neighbors are worried about the hate being directed at their communities, and that is something you heard the president speak to in his address just last.
She wasn't asked
Thursday.
about the Muslims.
And so,
it's incredible.
One of the things that the president has done is directed his team, a Homeland Security team, to prioritize prevention and disruption of any emerging threats that could harm the Jewish, the Muslim, Arab Americans, or any other communities, and that is something that the president has sought to do. And
all right, you asked about anti-Semitism, not the Muslims. It did 20 minutes on the Muslims and 2 seconds on the Jews.
What you have to understand there is it makes sense. This is not she's now claiming it was an accident or she misheard or something like that, but it's not. They cannot. Jews are now supposed to be white and thus oppressors. So even though when she talks about, I like how they talk about proportionate. Israel has to have a proportionate response, but it's hard to find a bunch of Israeli soldiers willing to behead Palestinians. So that's tough. But also we should have a proportionate amount of hate against a certain group. It's so insane, but it makes sense. She can't tell you that Jews right now are feeling threatened, which they obviously are. I just got a couple more guns last week in Fort Lauderdale. The guy told me that every single person coming into his store is a liberal Jew.
Good.
Because they're for the first time, even in Florida, for the first time, they're like, they're buying guns for the first time.
Their theme is white supremacy, white supremacy, white supremacy. Who are the Jews? Who's attacking the Jews? The Klan? Like who are at these rallies?
Who's chanting for genocide? Which, by the way, that is what they are doing at these rallies. They are chanting for genocide.
It's such an upside down world. We do have this. We finally found Lilliputian. Lilliputian. Yeah. Lilliputian.
A trivial or very small person or thing.
Took a while. All right, now the Biden clip, which I fell in love with, but everyone should ask, what the fuck is he talking about?
Decision. Some airlines, if you want 6 more inches between you and the seat in front, you pay more money. But you don't know it until you purchase your ticket. Look, folks, these are junk fees. They're unfair, and they hit marginalized Americans the hardest, especially low-income folks and people of color.
And people of color. All right. Now, first off, you don't know what when you buy a fucking plane ticket. Like, I do not know what he's talking about.
No,
do you know what he's talking about?
I don't know what he's talking about in reality, other than I know it's just more of the pandering nonsense, right? So what he's basically saying there is that black people on computers buying airline tickets are somehow less equipped to understand whether they're buying even more space or a regular seat, or, boy, these things all cost a different amount of money, which, by the way, they should, right? They should cost more money. You probably fly first class. When's the last time Carolla flew coach?
Honest?
It's been a long time.
No. All the time, I do this all the time. I just go, how much is first class and how much is coach?
Yeah.
And then someone goes, it's another $871 to fly first class. And I go, how long's the flight? And they go, it's 2 hours and 28 minutes or something. And I go, it's not worth it for that. I'll fuck it.
You're a man of the people.
I fly coach all the time.
Wow.
I fly Southwest all the time.
And what about the legroom? You're paying a little extra? Because I don't. Well, you're a white guy, so you probably know what you're doing when you're ordering.
Oh, I have my servant. Yes, I'm 6'2". It's hard. My knees do hit the seat in front in coach. But he says poor people and black people. He's created a separate category for people of color that aren't poor. An extra $50 for more knee room would affect poor people, but it wouldn't necessarily affect black people.
Unless what he's saying, which is, again, he doesn't know what he's saying, but what he's saying is, in effect, black people don't know how to order airline tickets, which, by the way, is the same thing when they say, well, we shouldn't have voter ID. The reason they say you shouldn't have voter ID is because what they would tell you, it's not true, is that somehow black people don't know how to get an ID.
Well, no, I completely... And it's the most racist thought anyone can have. But I don't know if he's saying they don't know what they're doing or they don't know how to do it. He is saying that the airlines have take advantage. And he's gotten it so beaten into his brain that he has to say disproportionately affects black and brown off every speech he says, just like everything that comes out of California or Oregon, or Washington State, or whatever, disproportionately affects these people, and thus we look. I will say one thing to my black and brown listeners and friends: thank you, because they've now legalized jaywalking. So now, if you guys
I can't be confined like that.
Complaining about paying taxes and passion fruit iced tea, we could really have a meeting of the minds here if it disproportionately affects. The one good thing that happened is we just did away with jaywalking because we went, it disproportionately affects. That's what we do. We go, it disproportionately affects black and brown people, and then we eliminate it.
Do you think that maybe this airline thing and buying the tickets has something to do with dark mode on the computer? Maybe something like that? You know what I mean? Dark mode, light mode. Maybe more white people are in light mode, and that's...
Well, I want to hear it one more time just because I'm fascinated. But also, yes, if you want to fly first class, it costs more. If you want to fly business, it costs more. If you want to fly coach, it costs more. And then there's 5 different price points within coach.
Right.
And then you decide whether you want to pay $50 for the knee room or not.
Again, though, before we play the clip, just the concept that the president of the United States is talking about this, put aside the race stuff and just all the fact that a minute of this man's day
and
is dedicated.
And he's weaving race into commercial flights. He is like one of these, he's one of these guys. He's one of these guys. You'll see some of these people, they put Tabasco on everything. Like eggs, they'll put it on steaks, potatoes, whatever. They literally put, this is what he does. He does with race what someone from New Orleans does with Tabasco. It's like, there's no subject. He's discussing baggage handling fees. And he weaves race right into it. All right, here it is.
Decision. Some airlines, if you want 6 more inches between you and the seat in front, you pay more money. But you don't know it until you purchase your ticket. Look, folks, these are junk fees. They're unfair, and they hit marginalized Americans the hardest, especially low-income folks and people of color.
How would you not know it till you purchase your ticket? So after you purchase,
anyone? Yeah.
Do you get a pop-up that says, "Ha, we got you. You did get the 6 extra inches, but you're gonna pay." None of it makes sense. It's so stupid.
Well, he's also talking about guys who live in a 3-walled house on a swamp from the 1860s are flying. Look, if you're sophisticated enough to go, I got to go to Denver for business. I think you can figure you have a credit card, you have a photo ID, you have a laptop computer. You're sophisticated enough to figure out that if you want the emergency exit, it's going to cost you another $56.
What happens on the other side? So you click purchase, and then it's like the fat guy in Jurassic Park. Ha ha ha!
Right.
Ha ha ha! Like, we gotcha. See,
it's nonsensical. But my question is more to the people in this orbit. Like, I would just go, well, I don't know what you're talking about. What you just said doesn't make sense,
Adam.
So why are you doing this?
But you know the answer to that. They are all in on it. They are all in on destroying everything that this country was made upon. The idea of meritocracy and that skill and passion and equality of opportunity. They're out to take out all of these things. And he's just the rather lifeless vessel that is ushering it in.
I guess. It's sad. And I've always sort of laughed with Dr. Drew where I would go, what's the end game? Like, what's the plan? And then the reason I would laugh is sometimes I would defend these people where I'd go, no, listen, Gavin Newsom's not trying to destroy California. He's just an imbecile. He's an imbecile. Like, come on, give him a break. He's an imbecile. And it'd be like me saying, oh, what? Right, we have an imbecile. My argument is I'm making an argument for Biden, like, oh, he's not trying to destroy the country. He's just an imbecile. It'd be like saying you hired a guy to drive a forklift in your factory and he keeps running into shelves and like knocking them over. And we're going, we got to fire this guy. And I'm going, he's not intentionally trying to destroy the factory. He just doesn't know how to operate a forklift. So give him a break.
Do you know what the road to hell is paved with, Adam?
Good intentions.
Yeah, and the simple truth is
Lilliputians.
The simple, yeah, exactly. With small people, the simple truth is these people could not be this incompetent. You couldn't look at what we see happening at the border with people just pouring over and our guys literally like opening up the fence doors, letting them in, then holding them for a few minutes and letting in more. You couldn't watch any of that and think, oh, this is incompetence. It's design. It's design.
I've been told to look at the name on my little screen that has Little messages on it. Leah Pruett makes this miniature screen.
What?
Crazy. All right, let me give you a plug. Dave
freaking out,
Rubin.
man.
The Rubin Report. I love this guy. It's always good to talk to you, my friend.
Carolla,
You
can I do a little work for you in terms of the house that you're going to buy in Miami? What do you need? You like a modern home, right? You're a
Yeah.
modern guy.
I love your old
modern.
home.
Yeah, you want to be on the water. What do you need? I'm going to do a little legwork for you. I
I'd
got to
like
get
to
you. I
live-
want you and Prager out of here. Enough of this already.
I'd like to live close to you and David.
All right, we're going to make it work.
Let's make it work. Dave Rubin, and website, daverubin.com. NASCAR legend. Just
Thank
the guy
you.
never stopped winning, not you.
Tony
Stewart.
Oh.
Smoke is in studio next. Viator experiences are what people love most about travel. I mean, God, taking my son fishing in Alaska, that was so amazing. I'll never forget it. Viator, it's a website and app for booking travel experiences like seeing Stonehenge or a walking tour of Rome. Over 300,000 bookable experiences in 190 countries. Millions of real travelers' reviews. So you have the information you need to book the best activities for your trip. With Viator, there's always flexibility and support with free cancellation, payment options, and 24/7 service. So let's get out there and experience life, shall we? Download the Viator app now and use the code Viator10 for 10% off your first booking in the app. One app, over 300,000 travel experiences you won't forget. Do more with Viator. Well, NASCAR legend Tony Stewart is in studio. He's moved from behind the wheel of a NASCAR to, and you've driven lots of sprint cars and dirt and stuff, ovals and stuff like that. But NHRA event coming up, and I've been out there to Pomona. They used to call them the Winter Nationals. I don't know if we're still calling them that, but it's at In-N-Out Raceway. Great burger. November 9th through the 12th, and it's an experience, man. And you don't really need to be into the nuts and bolts of racing. You'll just have an experience, because when those things fire up, it's not the sound, it's concussion those things make. Bring your earplugs, man.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing that really caught me off guard. I mean, I've watched it on TV my whole life, but to finally get an opportunity, a couple of years ago to go to the track and be around it, and to sit there and literally when they step on the gas, you feel your insides move. And I'm like, I don't think that's normal. So it's definitely a unique sport.
Are you driving funny car or dragster?
I'm running top alcohol dragster. So we're the fastest quarter mile class in NHRA. We run between 270, 280 miles an hour in 5.2 seconds.
Yeah. You say quarter mile, but it's 5,000 feet or is it
1,320 feet.
Oh, wait. What did I screw up? Didn't they switch it from a quarter mile to a slightly shorter distance?
Yes, for the nitro classes. So Top Fuel and Funny Car only run 1,000 feet.
Oh, 1,000 feet. So, that's right.
But they're doing it in 3.6, 3.7 seconds at over 330 miles an hour.
Yeah, I try to tell everyone who wants to sort of figure out what that might feel like, is I go, well, if you've ever been in a car like a Corvette or Ferrari or something that was cool, or something that was just built up Chevelle or something with one of your friends, and he just at a red light and threw some revs and dumped the clutch and hauled ass, and you were pinned back into your seat, that rush, that feeling. At the end of 3 seconds, that guy's going 41 miles an hour. These guys are going 330.
Yeah.
That's the difference between you hopping in a supercar and doing it and what these guys are up to.
And I think the G-forces are probably 8 to 10 times stronger in the drag car, because what they don't realize is not only do you have a big wide slick on the track, but they spray we call it glue basically, and it is like fly paper. So you walk out there, if you had sandals on, it takes the sandals off your feet.
Yeah.
So it gives these cars a ton of traction, and to have the ability to sit there and go from a standing start. And for the nitro cars at the 60-foot cone, they're already going 100 miles an hour in 60 feet.
60 feet?
60 feet.
And how controllable is that car. I mean, there's the tires on the front are kind of 10-speed tires. Is it control? I mean, there's some steering going on, but it's kind of a suggestion more than a rule. Or how do you?
I think with the funny car, it's a little more that way. I had the chance to drive Matt Hagan, that drives our funny car for us at TSR. I did a test session at Indy in his car, and the one thing I noticed is when it asks for a correction in the steering, you have to make a big correction, and you need to make it fast. The dragsters are really the opposite. It's more like driving an Indy car, so everything's a slow, smooth movement in the dragster, but you've got to be ready for anything at any moment.
You've done the Indianapolis 500, right?
Yep.
That's the one that scares most of the people. Also, did you do Pikes Peak?
I haven't. It's odd you say that, because last week I got an offer to run Pikes Peak next year, and I'm trying to figure out scheduling wise if that's something that can fit in the schedule, because there's a lot of racetracks in the country, whether it's dirt tracks, pavement tracks, road courses. There's a lot of racetracks I still haven't been to that I'd really like to go to, and I had the chance to drive up Pikes Peak in a streetcar when we ran the Indy Racing League races out there at Pikes Peak, but I always wondered what it would be like to get the opportunity to race up the mountain.
What was funny, because I was reading up on you last night before you came in, show prep, we call it, kids, and I saw one at Pikes Peak, and I was like, is that an Indy race? Or is that Pikes Peak? And I just had it in my head. So I said to my producer, I said, did he run Pikes Peak? He said, this is one at Pikes Peak. And I was like,
Not the hill climb though. This was the oval when the Indy cars raced there.
I didn't know that at Pikes Peak Oval. Is it still around?
They don't. I haven't heard of them racing on it. I mean, I ran an Indy car there. I ran an Xfinity car there. I ran a super modified there. But it was a cool racetrack. But it definitely was at a unique location.
I also read that you were in the Sonoma Hall of Fame or something, that track, which means you must have run NASCAR there. To me, I'm kind of a road course guy, and the oval is cool, but the road course is where these guys really shine, like as a driver, because I think you could teach people to do that oval if their balls were big enough in a NASCAR, but the road course, especially Sonoma, super technical, hard elevation change. I mean, to run that track and to win at that track, you have to be able to handle a car. It's not a quarter mile straight line. It is.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell people Richmond was my very favorite NASCAR track, and I think part of that's because that's the first place I ever won a Cup Series race. But Sonoma's always been my second favorite track, and for exactly the reasons you mentioned. It's very technical. The elevation changes, the lack of grip in the track. It's an old surface. It makes it a driver's racetrack, to where I tell the rookies that come in, I'm like, you're racing yourself as much, if not more, than you're racing the other competitors on the track. I said, you have to be in tune with what your car's doing and know how hard you're pushing your car to make sure you're budgeting. Your tires, a fuel stint might be 40 or 45 laps, but your tires, if you run as hard as you can run right out of the gate, in 10 laps are going to be burnt off the thing. So you have to manage your tires. You have to play that patience game and that chess match of, it's fun to get behind somebody and you're quicker than they are, but you're having a hard time getting around. You don't even have to try to make that move. Sometimes you just stalk them long enough and they keep looking in the mirror and they know you're there. You let them make the mistake or let them overdrive their tires. And so Sonoma's a place I really love. I do like that track.
Yeah. Never ran at Laguna Seca.
No, not yet.
It's such a great track. And they just resurfaced it.
It would be Mach 12 right now. You'll be able to haul ass around it.
Oh my God. It's so, you want some elevation change.
Yeah.
That's some elevation change.
Yeah. Watching the corkscrew on TV and watching IndyCar and sports cars, you always wonder what it would feel like to make that really hard left-hand turn, and no more than you get turned and you drop over the edge and then you're turning right immediately and running down the hill wide open.
I've done it 250 times and it's cool, but it's not as difficult is people think. They think it's really technical and hard or whatever. I've never had any issues there. I've had issues in many other parts of that track. Like when I crashed a Trans Am car in fucking practice because there's a water stream going across turn 4 or whatever it was, and I was on slicks, and it's still my fault, but it was kind of comical. I mean, I didn't destroy the car. I just fucked up my weekend. But you got to get out there. I don't know what you'd run. Well, you know what you got to do. You got to do a vintage race.
Yeah, that's what everybody keeps telling me. They think that'd be the perfect opportunity.
You got to get some guy who's got to, I don't know what you want to drive, because they have it during vintage, they got everything. You know,
I want to drive something that I can't afford to drive. So if I screw it up and crash it, I can go, hey, man, I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah.
So just get out and walk away from it.
Yeah, you could. I'll find. You could definitely. There's like guns for hire. The guys will drive 6 cars on the weekend, and they're like professional drivers. You know, same thing at Goodwood. I don't know if you've been to Goodwood.
No, I know a lot about it, but I haven't been there.
Got to get to Goodwood. You've got to go to Goodwood, and don't do the Festival of Speed. Do the vintage, the historic race. Oh my God. Yes, you would, of course, people would be honored for you to drive their car. And Laguna Seca is not as difficult as Sonoma. Take it from the guy who's driven both. Sonoma's a much more technical, it's a harder track, I guess is what I would say.
I believe that. I just feel like that Laguna's one of those iconic road courses in the U.S. and even in the world. I mean, everybody knows Laguna Seca. So that's just one that I haven't had the opportunity yet, but before my time here is done, I'm gonna find a way to make it work and go there and race.
So how do you start off? I mean, is everyone just starts in karting? Is that how you start off?
I did. I started when I was 8 years old. My father before I was 8, used to take me to races all the time, and I fell in love with motorsports ever since my earliest memories. But when I turned 8, I was old enough to start racing, and we bought a kart and raced locally in southern Indiana, and it just grew from there until I graduated high school and then started moving my way up the ladder.
When did you do your first professional NASCAR race?
My first NASCAR race was in '96, and my first Cup Series race in NASCAR was at Daytona in '99.
Wow, that's a big, fast track. Were you ever freaked out, scared, intimidated?
More that if I wasn't successful driving a race car, that I was actually going to have to go out and get a real job. That was the biggest fear that I had. Yeah. And then all these years later now, and 40 plus years of being in motorsports, I look back and I'm like, I have about 5 full-time jobs right now as we're sitting here.
Right.
So, but driving the race cars, no. I mean, obviously when you're in a crash and when you know you're going to hit a wall,
right,
and you haven't got there yet, that is probably the worst moment that you can have as a driver, knowing that you know what's coming, you just don't know how bad it's going to be.
Did you do some of your racing before they had the barriers that sort of gave?
Yeah, safer walls.
Safer wall, yeah, because that Dale Earhardt basically would still be here if they had a safer wall, right?
The odds would have been a lot better for sure.
Yeah, because I always heard stories about he wasn't wearing his Hans device or seatbelt wasn't around him or something. I don't know if there's much to that.
It tore the seatbelt. So back then everybody ran aluminum seats, and then the holes where the seatbelts went up through for your lap belts, used to put a rubber grommet on the inside of that.
So it didn't chafe.
The grommet moved and it wore through the belt, and so during the impact, it tore the belt right there. So that wasn't anybody. You know, Simpson was the manufacturer back then, and Bill Simpson was a good friend of mine, and you know, he had death threats and everything else, and it really wasn't. It wasn't Simpson Race Products' fault, but that's how passionate the fans were of how much everyone was grieving over losing Dale Earnhardt Sr., that anything they could point the finger on. I mean, Sterling Marlin got death threats, Simpson Race Products, anybody that they thought they could point the finger at, they were doing it.
What year did he pass?
2001.
So
I was in the same race.
You were in the same race.
Was in the same race, and actually had a very similar but different accident to his off of turn 2 on the backstretch with 25 laps to go. The car, we were 3 wide. I was the car on the very inside. Car on the outside hit the wall on the exit, hit the middle car. The middle car hit me, turned me to the outside wall, very similar to Dale's crash. It just wasn't on the banking, so It didn't have the same load. But the car hit the wall, backed up in the air. I was literally running third on the racetrack at the time. I land on top of my teammate, Bobby Labonte, who was running 23rd. Landed on top of him when it came down.
Wow. I wonder if there's any footage of that. It's got to be on the Ultranet somewhere. God. To me, the greatest invention in all of humanity, and not because it's so effective, but it is effective, but because it's such a simple fix, and I wish we could apply this to every facet of humanity, is the flaps that kick up when you get backwards at 170 miles an hour. All they do, NASCARs used to go airborne. As soon as they got backward at speed, they'd literally lift off the ground and then create some of the craziest accidents in the world, because not only are you going 160 miles an hour, but you're going that way backwards, and now you're 20 feet in the air. And that's insane.
And I think a lot of that, the rear bumpers were a lot higher off the ground than the front of the cars were. So when you turned that around, you had this big opening that was channeling down to a little opening in the front, and all it did was just pack the air and physically pick the back of the car up. Once it got the back of the car up, then the driver was just along for the ride.
And somebody just said, we'll just take a piano hinge and some sheet metal, and we'll just flap it down on top of the car, put a couple on the roof, a couple on the hood, and if it goes backwards, then the flap will kick up. We won't use AI or anything. It'll just be wind. We'll kick it up. We'll disrupt the air, and the cars will stay on the ground.
By theory. That's what it was designed to do. And it was effective a little bit, but it still to this day hasn't fixed Cup cars getting upside down.
Oh, really?
We had Ryan Preece that drives for us in the Cup Series in NASCAR, was in a really bad crash at Daytona, and the whites of his eyes were all red, and literally that kid was back in the shop the very next day working out on Monday morning and ready to rip. He got cleared to race the very next weekend.
Was it a going backwards and my flaps didn't work?
I think it was in the infield a little bit and got in the grass, and I think it actually dug in at some point. And when the front of the car dug in, that's when it got on its side, and then it just barrel rolled.
We have your crash, by the way, from the same race with Dale Earhardt.
Yeah, I wonder if the result's going to be the same.
If you're in what place you in here? Third?
Yeah, I'm the one that right there makes a hard right and alley-oop.
Wow. That's you landing on your teammate's car?
Yeah, right there.
Wow. That's 15 cars, 20 cars in that crash. Wow.
So the ironic part of that video is there was a good view, and Dale Earhardt Sr. was right behind me when I went up in the air like that, and he goes to the inside. Mm-hmm. Literally, you think about how history could have been changed if he, it would have been unfortunate for him to clip our car, but that could have saved his life at the end of the day too.
If he just sustained a little damage to his car.
Just got involved in a small way, he could still be here.
Jeez, you are being tossed around like a sock in a dryer.
So that car literally stops in the grass. My teammate's car is next to mine, and I wake up and he's there, the window net's down, and he's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I think so." He goes, "We can cut the top off to get you out." I'm like, No, I don't want to hurt the car. I had no idea what the car looked like. So they literally, Bobby helps me out of the car, Bobby Labonte, pulls me out of the race car. I look at the car, I'm like, "What happened?" He goes, "You landed on me."
Wow.
And I had a confused look, so he goes, "Just get in the ambulance. I'll tell you about it on the ride." And he told me about the whole thing, but it was, that was a scary deal for us. I actually remember answering the phone at the hospital. My mother called, and my mother, who had never shed a tear but once at a race when I got in a crash, was in tears on the phone. And I'm like, "I'm fine." Just bumps and bruises and some small cuts, but it was very minor compared to what happened 25 laps later on the last lap when we lost Dale Sr.
Did you ever pause? Did your mom call you again and go, "Look, this is what happened to you. That's what happened to Dale Sr. Maybe it's time to find a school teaching job or something like that?
She didn't. I think my mom's one of my biggest fans, actually. I mean, she's always been supportive. Before I started racing at the age of 8, at 5, they bought a yard cart at an auction, and I ran that in my mom's backyard. And my dad thought it was great. I thought it was great. My mother, on the other hand, didn't like the state of her backyard.
Right.
After running a go-kart for 3 years on it. So that's how we moved up. But she's amazing. She's, now I'm married to Leah, and every race that Leah and I run together, even the ones that I don't run, she's watching every run that Leah makes in that dragster.
Is Leah, your wife, her dad holds some land speed records?
He does.
But, all right, so let's just see if this works. Chris said he holds the land speed record. And I said, no, that's out of Britain, I think. It's a British fighter pilot driving a British car. I said, he probably holds some records in a class, like piston driven. They have a whole lot of different land speeds. So he has records in what class?
I'm not sure what the class is, but I can tell you one of Leah's crew guys found her father's car. Her father passed away a couple years ago, unfortunately. And one of the crew guys said, hey, I know where Leah's dad's land speed car was. And he still has a track record at El Mirage here in California. And so make the long story short, I ended up buying the car. We came out to Redlands, California, where Leah's family's from, came out for Thanksgiving. And the guy on Wednesday, the day before Thanksgiving, shows up with the car out in front of the house. There's a bunch of trees that block that. So I had her mother and her sister and her. We walk down the driveway. All they see is the front of this truck, and we go past the truck where the trailer is, and there is her father's land speed card. So he had the fastest Ford Thunderbird for a long, long time. And it may still be the fastest Ford Thunderbird at like 248 miles an hour.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, I've looked at it and I'm like, she's like, we could go run this thing. I'm like, yeah, you can drive it. Yeah. I'm not driving it. I'll check air pressure and stuff. You go have fun.
Yeah, they have. It's crazy. They have a motorcycle class. They have under 100cc class. Like they just have every class. But I don't know that there's enough salt and the surface is good enough to ever make a real run at the speed record anymore. I mean, I'm not an expert in that form of racing, but I believe Britain has the record for fastest person on the planet.
Jet car or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
something car. Insane that is, if anything goes wrong, they just ride off.
It's like 740 miles an hour or something. I mean, it's beyond sonic boom. The speed of sound. I don't know. Chris can look it up, but I mean, I think they said it. I think they said it about.
The current holder of the outright world land speed record was driven by Andy Green in a twin turbofan jet-powered car, which achieved 763.035 miles per hour.
And it's been 25 years, right? I mean, I think it's
1997.
Yeah, because since 97, people have got smart and realized that's a really bad idea to try to do that.
It's crazy. You're going 750 miles an hour on the ground.
And if something happens, you're going to die that day. That's the part that just is crazy to me because, and they, Leah told me a story of her father's Thunderbird spinning 360 degrees and he saved it. And I'm like, those cars at 700 miles an hour, anything happens and those things get sideways or crooked or anything, it is done. And it doesn't matter how good your helmet, how good your seat, how good your seat belts are. You are not going to survive that crash.
No. But here's how much I know about racing. When Chris said that he was the fastest man on the planet.
This is ridiculous. I copy and pasted it from his bio. What do you want me to do here? I didn't write the thing.
No, it's not your fault. I just said, no, he's not.
And I didn't disagree.
I know. He didn't disagree. I'm not talking about your inadequacies. I'm talking about my prowess.
We're trying as a couple, Leah and I are trying to figure out if we are the fastest couple in motorsports right now. So I've driven her top fuel car. I ran 322 miles an hour. She's ran like 336.
Wow.
And that was something that was a topic on our way to dinner the other night of, I wonder if there's another couple that are faster than us right now.
Well, you got Ray Hall to deal with.
He's in the 200s though.
I know. I'm just saying, just bringing up.
We got him beat. We checked that out already.
Yeah, because he's driving Indy and his wife's driving.
Courtney drove funny cars.
Funny cars. So that's something.
Yep.
It's not you guys.
They're close.
Yeah.
It's a good effort.
Well, they're 165 miles an hour off your guys combined, whatever, right?
Plus or minus, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So that's second place. Well, look, this guy who drove this car, this jet car, and whoever he's married to, because even if she doesn't drive, they are the fastest couple.
You're right.
I don't want to shit on your parade.
I mean, I got beat on a technicality here, I feel like. But I mean, reality is reality.
What's that guy's name? Is Andy Green. Whoever he's married to, even if she drives a Tesla.
Listen, I would have been Andy Brown is what I would have been, because my drawers would have been brown if I drove 700 miles an hour in that car.
So you and your wife you're at about 7, you're close to 7.
About 650, a little over 650.
Over 650 combined speed.
Yeah, all right. I'm embarrassed now. I'm just gonna go curl up in the corner in the fetal position. And cry myself to sleep.
In spirit, you're right, but the reality is Andy Green and his British wife,
who probably doesn't even drive her own car around. So
right, and he was a fighter pilot, because that's about the only guy you could get to drive
something with jet engines in it. I agree.
Yes.
I think that would be somewhat important to have some practical knowledge on how a jet engine works.
And that's it. It's been 25 years, and he's taken it to the grave.
Yeah, I can promise you that there's one person that you know that will not be trying to top his achievement.
And that is you.
And that is me.
I'm right behind you, brother, on that. What people don't also know is the British have an obsession with speed. They historically have. They tried to set water speed records and died all the time, in the 40s and the 50s and all throughout. They tried to set air speed records and would die all the time. I think
there seems to be a pattern developing here.
Yes. The son of de Havilland, maybe it is, a big airplane manufacturer, whatever. It's like, try to set the airspeed record by just getting altitude and go into a flat-out dive to see how fast.
It's a great idea.
Go. It's a great idea, and the plane broke up. But they're a culture that's weirdly obsessed with speed, which you don't necessarily. I mean, they have a great racing history and all that kind of stuff, but they have a land, water, air speed obsession. The Brits do, so it's not surprising that they hold the land speed record.
Yeah. And that's the crazy thing. People ask, now that I'm drag racing and I'm running cars that are way faster than anything I ever, IndyCar was the fastest I'd driven. I think at rookie orientation, I ran into turn 3 at 250 miles an hour, and that's the fastest I'd ever been. And that was in 96.
At Indy.
With a turbocharged car. So those cars made 1,000 horsepower.
Yes. They're not going that as fast today, are they?
I don't think their peak mile an hour is that high, but their average mile an hour is just as high, if not almost. It's almost record breaking now. I think Arie Luyendyk still has the lap record at 238.
Yeah, because of aero and tire technology
and bigger motors.
Things of that.
Definitely had more horsepower back then.
That nature. What? Hold on. This just in. Andy Green, the guy who piloted that machine, their team are currently working on hitting 1,000 miles an hour.
That's a great idea. Why didn't we think of that first? What do you win if you get to 1,000 miles an hour?
I'm telling you, the Brits have some sort of weird obsession with speed. He's already got the record.
I'd be sitting on my recliner and...
I know, in Hounslow, England.
Yeah.
And drinking a pint of Guinness. No, they're going for 1,000. And I don't know where they're going to do it. I don't know if they're going to do it out here or whatever, but I will watch.
Yeah, and not live. I won't watch.
I would scare the shit out of me. Yeah. Oh, it's South Africa is where they're going to give it a shot. Wow.
That's crazy.
If he gets to 1,000, then him and whoever's wife is are going to be the
I think you just give it to him by default.
Yeah.
You don't even challenge it. You don't give him and say, well, how fast does your wife drive her streetcar? It doesn't even matter at that point. You just, by default, you just give him the trophy.
Fastest couple.
Say congratulations.
Tony, let me give you a plug. The NHRA finals at the In-N-Out Raceway at Pomona. Bring the kids. Bring the ear protection, man. Because when those things fire, first off, I might bring some eye protection too, because when that nitro gets in the air, your eyes will water. You will smell it, you will feel it.
That is one of the biggest things that I've experienced in NHRA that I love that television can't portray. It can't give you the concussion of when the cars hit the gas, the concussion that your body feels sitting in the stands, the smell of the nitromethane, just the sights, the sounds. Being able to go back in the pit area and watch these guys literally tear a motor down after a run and in 45 minutes be ready to roll that car back out to go make another run. It's incredible to actually have the access that you have in NHRA drag racing that you don't get at IndyCar or NASCAR or IMSA or anything
walk
else.
Through aisles all through the teams. And you can watch them tearing those engines down, pulling the heads, putting the rings on the pistons and so on, changing the bearings, so on and so forth. I mean, you are in amongst. And the only thing I tell you is be careful because they will fire those things in the pit every once. Or not
they do every run.
In the paddock.
Yeah.
And it will blow you away.
Yeah. The fun part is sitting there, the way the funny car sits in their pit, it's toward the back of the pit. So when they fired up, the fumes and exhaust are going straight out the back where the people are. And there'll be 40 people standing there when they fire that car up. Within 5 seconds, that 40 turns into 30. In the next 5 seconds, it's down to 20. In the next 5 seconds, it's down to 5.
Yeah.
Because nobody can breathe.
No.
But it has a unique smell to it, which is cool as can be, but I mean, your eyes water. It's an experience, and it's something that I literally watched a fan take a trash bag like he was going to put leaves in the fall in it. Had it up in the air, catching the air and the fumes and the smoke, and trapping that in a trash bag and taking it around. So they're crazy. I mean, drag racing fans are absolutely amazing, and the experience there is you aren't going to get an experience like that at any other form of motorsports.
I completely concur. And you can shoot Tony a tweet at Tony Stewart, and TonyStewart.com is where you can go as well. Dave Rubin, check out the Rubin Report. And for me, I'll be in Spokane this weekend, Friday, Saturday, doing 4 shows, Spokane Comedy Club, and then Tacoma on Sunday doing a couple of shows at the Tacoma Comedy Club. So come on out. Say hi. Until next time, it's Adam Carolla for Dave Rubin, Tony Stewart saying mahalo.